I'm Hemant Mehta.
And I'm Jessica Blumke.
And you're listening to the podcast for FriendlyAtheist.com. You can now listen to all of our episodes and see show notes at FriendlyAtheistPodcast.com.
So I'm here at the American Atheists Convention 2015 in Memphis, Tennessee, and I am joined by Beaulieu and Frank Conniff. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I like that you're sharing a mic. You guys look like backup singers, which I'm really into.
I'm like Linda McCartney, and he's Yoko.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Why do I have to be Yoko?
Yoko's she's, probably the more talented. Not that Linda wasn't talented, but...
I'm going to go pound a nail into the ceiling.
All right, so you guys, our listeners should probably know you as the creators of Mystery Science Theater.
Well, we're not
3000. Not the creators.
Although,
they wouldn't know that.
Trace was there at the inception of it and helped develop it and form it and make it what it was.
But I was the doula. That helped that.
But I didn't come in until the second season. So,
okay.
I only tell people I created it when I'm in a Brian Williams kind of mood. And I want to build up my resume and stuff. And then, But then I also tell people that I started it and that I operated all the puppets. Because I learned from Brian Williams that you should just exaggerate everything.
Yeah,
Didn't
absolutely.
you get shot on the show, too?
I did. I was in a helicopter over the studio, and we got IED. It's very hairy.
Did all your own stunts.
You stepped on an IUD, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess, what was the genesis of Mystery Science Theater?
The original show was done on a UHF station in Minneapolis, and Joel and Jim Allen shared warehouse space, and they knew each other, and Jim had access to this TV station, and Joel had a concept for a TV show, and then he brought Josh Weinstein, or J. Elvis Weinstein, and myself in to operate some puppets. And we found ourselves watching bad movies with nothing else really to say, and we realized very quickly we needed to fill the dead space with jokes, and it grew from there.
Cool. I love that.
And then eventually we learned we needed to write scripts, and that's when Frank came on board, because we needed writers, because it was all improv in the early days.
And then you realized that you're not that quick on your feet. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Well, we were quick on our feet, but we were quick on our feet in the writer's room before we filmed, and so it was the script was an accumulation of several days of us being quick on our feet in a slow kind of way.
And how did you pick the movies? Like, whose awful job was it to just watch those terrible movies?
You were looking at the person. It was my job. It became my job. When we first started, we were kind of haphazard about it. We would all watch a few minutes of a movie and then just say, yeah, let's do that one. But then we did a film called Side Hackers, which we watched a few minutes of it and said, yeah, let's do this. And then when we got the rights for it, and then when we did it, we saw that right in the middle of the movie there was this horribly brutal, violent rape scene, which we didn't really care to make jokes about, and we cut the scene out, but we decided from then and there that one of us should watch an entire movie before we go and recommend it, and then that job fell upon me because everyone else on the staff had other skills. Trace was building sets, Mike was writing music, but I had no other skills except yelling out sarcastic remarks, so they gave me that job.
I think one of the greatest skills I had was avoiding doing the odious job that fell to Frank.
I mean, it's a good skill to have, sounds like. So I get the genesis of we want to make fun of bad movies. Where did the whole kind of background of he's stuck in this thing and has to watch these movies and there's robots instead of just other people with him? Was there a specific reason you guys went that way, or just it seemed funnier?
Well, Joel was a fan of, as a lot of us were, a fan of the film with Bruce Dern.
Silent Running.
He was a man trapped on a spaceship with three little robots, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And Joel was very enamored of that idea. And in fact, you can see, if you watch that film, it looks like, Bruce Dern is this hippie in space, and that's kind of what Joel looked like on the early show.
Cool. I love that.
So yeah, the mythology grew out of that. The mythology of this spaceship show.
And plus, since it had a sci-fi premise from the start,
Sure.
And being in outer space, it made sense
Yeah.
to have robots. And plus, that Joel and Trace, they liked building things, and they loved making the robots. And then Trace was a very talented puppeteer, as was Kevin Murphy, who and J. Ellis Weinstein. So robots lent themselves to puppets
Sure.
very well.
Yeah. What's do you have a background in puppeteering?
Not really.
Uh-huh.
And I approached that show not really as a puppeteer, but more as a comedian.
Sure.
So it was the comedy first, and then the puppets were very unwieldy and really expressionless if you think about them.
Yeah.
Especially Tom Servo. So it was all we learned as we went along to how to puppeteer them.
Yeah.
And how they would look on screen. But it was really, for me, I don't know how Frank feels about it. It was the comedy first. What's visually funny, what's verbally funny.
Yeah.
The jokes are what mattered most.
What I love about the show is it's really ahead of its time, because I feel like now that podcasts have taken off, there's a handful of shows I can think of off the top of my head that do a similar idea to what you guys did, that whether it's actually doing the commentary over the movie or like How Did This Get Made is a podcast I love, that they watch movies and then kind of digest
or also,
them later.
shows I think like The Soup and stuff like that is kind of
like sort of meta humor.
Yeah, where they show a clip and then they do jokes about it. And then Twitter itself is very Mystery Science Theater-esque.
Yeah.
Everybody is always live tweeting things and snarking about everything.
Yeah.
And, so
what you're saying is you invented Twitter? Is that...
I'm not saying that. What I'm doing is apologizing for creating that mentality of unending snark that we live in.
Are you not a fan? Are you over snark? Have we reached peak snark?
Well, first of all, it's for me to even talk about this is the pot calling the kettle black, because I've based my whole life on being sarcastic and making quips and making wisecracks and making fun of everything. But I'm a little the Twitter, and there's people on Twitter who are brilliant and write brilliant jokes, and I'm a big fan, and I love being a part of Twitter. But the whole overall sensibility of when people just kind of put down everything, just kind of a second nature without even it really having any substance to it. That I'm not a fan of.
No.
And I don't really think Mystery Science Theater was the origins of that. I think, if you look back at Mad Magazine and Cracked
absolutely.
And everything that made fun of popular culture, Spy Magazine and National Lampoon, we were just another link in that chain of snarky comedy.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. So, Mystery Science, what years did the show air?
We started in 88, 87, and it went through...
Till 98, right?
98, yeah, it was 10 years.
And did you run out of movies, or were you just kind of over the...
we'll never, ever run out of movies.
Well, the show was canceled by Comedy Central after like 7 seasons, and then the Sci-Fi Channel picked it up for the last 3, and I think the show could have gone on forever, but the Sci-Fi Channel decided not to.
And it's lived on in Cinematic Titanic, which was a live version of Mystery Science Theater, and Mike and Kevin and Bill Corbett do riff tracks, which continued it in another kind of really inspired way of doing contemporary movies where you did not need to acquire the rights to those.
You just put an MP3 file attached to it.
Yeah.
So it lives on, and we found by going to these science fiction conventions that the show is maybe more popular than it was when we were making it.
Yeah, and people are really passionate about it.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's very gratifying. We meet a lot of people who grew up watching the show, which first of all makes me realize how old I am. And secondly is very gratifying because people have great stories about how, I watched it with my dad, it brought us together, or it was a thing our family did, or or a lot of people say, I was going through a really difficult time in my life. I was suffering from an illness, and your show really helped me get through it. And I just love hearing that kind of thing so much. It makes me feel very grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah.
It makes us feel almost like we did something worthwhile.
Almost.
What's that like?
Well, we're not quite there.
Yeah, I actually have a memory of being pretty young, maybe 7 or 8, and I have an older brother, and he used to watch the show all the time. And I'd watch, when you're a kid, you look up to your older siblings, and I would watch it with him, and I did not get a single thing. But like, when you're a kid and you do the thing about where like it's a joke, like you recognize the pattern of what a joke sounds like. You don't get the joke, but you're like, we're enjoying this so much together.
Yeah. I totally I think I was that way when I was a little kid too, and I'd watch, because I was very interested in comedy, and when I was 6 years old, I think my favorite comedian was Jerry. I love Jerry Lewis, but then I'd watch other comedians who were a little more sophisticated than that. But I think just the cadence of the comedy, even when I didn't understand it, I think it influenced me and made me more interested in it.
Yeah, as a kid, you understand the rhythm.
Right, exactly.
And
exactly.
there's a great emotional payoff. You get to hear laughter.
Right.
And so I think you start laughing, or at least the comedians that I know that were understanding that rhythm as very young children. You would laugh anyway.
Yeah. For me, it was always, I loved watching Mel Brooks movies.
Oh,
Yes,
sure.
yeah.
And that was like, I remember watching, this is by no means his best one, but one I loved as a kid was the Robin Hood one.
Oh,
Robin
sure,
Hood,
Men in Tights, yeah.
And that came out in like 91, and I was 6, so I was just like all over it. And I watched it again when I was in high school, and there were jokes that I know I had laughed at, but the one that stuck out was like talking about, the joke was Loxley and Miguel can't miss, and I didn't know what bagels and lox were, but I was a kid like, classic Brooks.
Right.
And then I watched it as an adult, I'm like, it was a stupid pun on Jewish food.
Yeah.
So the show ends, and did you guys try to keep as a group, or did you kind of go
We
your
all
separate?
left at different times.
Oh, okay.
We all kind of went. We ended up like kind of migrating back to each other. But when I left, I moved to LA, and I left in '95. A few years before the show ended, and I moved to LA, and I ended up writing on Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Invader Zim and the Drew Carey Show and the Tom Green
Loved
Show.
the Drew Carey show as a kid.
Oh yeah,
Loved it.
Yeah, so I. So I was just off in my own thing, and then Trace left, and he ended up doing a lot of different projects in America's Funniest Home Videos and stuff like that.
Left after the 7th season, and after we had done the movie version of Mystery Science Theater. Went to LA, and Josh was just getting the head writer job of the reincarnated America's Funniest Home Videos, and he knew that I was skilled at mocking videotapes.
Sure.
So
Right up your alley.
we fell into that, and I did that for 9 seasons in Los Angeles. And then at the end of that run, we started Cinematic Titanic. Joel and Josh and I were pitching ideas around for other projects, and we all kind of came back to, what we really love to do is mock movies. So let's do that.
Yeah, and the thing about Cinematic Titanic too was that it was the Mystery Science Theater experience, but in front of a live audience. So that for me as a stand-up comedian, that brought it to a whole new level, and that was really like one of the greatest experiences of my professional life, was performing in front of entire auditoriums of people who love Mystery Science Theater and know exactly
That's so cool.
what it was that we were doing, and I just love that so much. If to me, the only thing better than doing Mystery Science Theater is doing Mystery Science Theater live. You know?
Yeah,
I bet.
it was such a natural graduation from Mystery Science Theater, because then it was just the purity of the jokes. There was no more robots or spaceship or premise or mad scientist. It was just us against the movie.
And would you do the same thing, that you would write things beforehand, or would
Yes,
you?
absolutely.
Yes.
Except because when we did Mystery Science Theater, we did it all together in one room, whereas now we all live in different parts of the country. So we would work on separate parts of the script separately, and then put them all together. And then when we got together in one city, we'd all go to a conference room, kind of like this, and rehearse it and change it.
Was it this swanky? Because this has two chandeliers.
Never this swanky,
No,
but...
we were not allowed swank.
Yeah.
This is nice.
If this recording sounds echoey, it's because we're in a giant boardroom.
The people that have been fired in this room would be an impressive list.
I just imagine like old white men in suits, like just sitting around this table, tenting their fingers and
Yes.
plotting destruction.
All looking like Mr. Burns.
That's exactly.
The millions of liver spots that have graced this room, it would be impressive.
Yeah. Do you guys both have background in stand-up?
Yeah, that's where we all met. We
Yeah.
all met doing stand-up comedy in Minneapolis. I'd moved there from New York in 1985, and I met Trace. I met Mike Nelson. I met Mike Nelson. He at an open mic, that I was running. That's where I first met him and his wife Bridget, and I met Trace at a place called the Ha Ha Club.
Comedy clubs have the best name.
I know, don't they?
So dignified.
They took that because the Chuckle Hut had been taken
exactly.
already.
Yeah.
But and I met and Joel had already been to L.A. and had been a big comedy sensation, but he kind of walked away from all that and he moved back to Minneapolis, and so he started coming back into the comedy clubs, and so I met him there. And I think it was all of us had a stand-up background except for Jim Mallon and Kevin Murphy were kind of from a TV production background, which was a really good combination of because they really knew how to. I think you were someone that said they had the key to the AV room. You know, they knew how to do it. So that was a very fortuitous combination. But that stand up is all of our backgrounds.
And that was so you were in the stand up scene in the 70s-ish?
Not 80s. Yeah,
the
this
80s?
was the mid-80s, like the height of the 1980s comedy club boom.
Yeah. I'm really curious because I do some stand-up in Chicago.
Chicago's one of the great comedy towns.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
And it's just a hobby. I really enjoyed it. What was the scene like in the 80s? Because there was a lot of people
great.
getting TV deals and...
Well, I think in L.A. stuff like that was going on where people like Drew Carey and Roseanne Barr and Tim Allen and Brett
Seinfeld.
Butler were getting... And as a result of the success of their shows, they ended up giving every comedian, when you got off the plane, you got a sitcom development deal, but none of them, hardly any of them became successful, or even got on the air. But we were in Minneapolis, and so none of us were getting big sitcom deals. But the great thing about it was such a fertile, creative scene there, and so all the people that I've just mentioned from Mystery Science Theater were all in Minneapolis, plus Liz Winstead, who went on to co-create The Daily Show, and
she's the best.
People like who'd already moved to LA but came back a lot, who were from there, like Louis Anderson and Jeff Cesario. And
I forgot about Louis Anderson.
Yeah, Louis Anderson and Joel Madison and. Just a lot of, and years later, he was after my time. Mitch Hedberg came out of Minneapolis, So
good.
There was just so much and Tom Arnold was from there. That's where he met Roseanne. So there was so much funny people, and it was a real renaissance. So for me, I just look at it, even like before I got on Mystery Science Theater, I look at back as just a really kind of golden time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Is it ever, you did, Mystery Science Theater was clearly like an important thing that happened in your life. Is it ever hard to be known for this one thing that you did 20 years ago? We
were talking about that the other day, and it's like you get known for the first thing you're seen doing.
Yeah.
And I don't think we resent it at all. We wouldn't be here if we had not done that. And we've had some great opportunities. Now we're seeing a generation who have come up watching that show, and now are in positions where they can hire us. They are now the executive producers on shows, and that's and if they are listening, please hire us.
Yes, please. We're in Tennessee doing an atheist convention. Help us. No, I'm kidding. But.
I think that's honestly, that leads me to my next question. Why are you at an atheist convention? What's...
Well, it was all God's work, I think.
Oh, good.
But
mysterious ways and such.
the head of this convention just contacted me on Twitter one day.
Silverman? David Silverman?
Yeah, and he said, would you, I think he wanted to get like Cinematic Titanic, he wanted to get everybody. And Cinematic Titanic weren't around anymore by then, and I know that Joel would not feel comfortable doing an atheist convention. So I said, I think Trace and I would be interested in doing it.
We're big whores.
Yeah, we're whores.
We'll come and do that.
We're doing, we did CPAC last week, and we're doing a Christian convention next week. No, I'm kidding. We didn't do any of those things. But
please go to CPAC, please.
Oh, I would love to go to CPAC.
What movie would we do at CPAC?
The same one we're doing here, I think.
Yeah.
God is not. Is it God's not?
God's not dead.
Not dead.
Yeah.
God is not dead.
But anyway, he just contacted me and said, would you guys be interested? And we were like, yeah, sure.
Cool.
You know.
Easy as can be.
Yeah.
If someone calls us up and invites us, we are polite.
And if there's money involved?
Yes, there has to be money.
I'm
and
not
then we're very
paying
polite.
you for this podcast. Was that made clear?
If you paid me, if I got paid for being on a podcast, I'd have to go call the Ripley's Believe It or Not people to let them know that an unprecedented thing happened.
Yeah, I feel like the moral I'm learning right now is if I want you guys to do something, I just tweet at you and you just sort of show up.
I'm in
Because
a
I just
period.
tweeted at you a half hour ago and here we are in my boardroom.
I don't say no to a lot of things, It's true. And I do, and I live in New York City now, and I've done everybody's podcast there. Everybody calls, not everybody, but people call me up.
Everyone
and I do them quite frequently, and I do whenever anyone asks me to do a stand-up show, if I'm available, I do it. So I just love going out and having experiences,
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about podcast, not to get too meta on this podcast, but what do you think about podcasting as an art form? Because you said like nobody makes that much money off them, but they're like a great way for comedians to get their work out.
They are. I as an art form, I think, as a business, they're not that exciting, but as an art form, they're very exciting.
Yeah.
Because every comedian I know is involved in podcasting, one way or the other. Podcasting now, someone else said that it's like comedy clubs in the 80s in terms of a boom among comedians. And I know it goes beyond comedians, but I'm just talking specifically about comedy.
This is like the comedy. So I could get free soda at this podcast?
No, that's the thing. Is the one thing that the comedy boom had over it is free soda that you don't.
Sorry.
Oh no, actually, I
water.
take that back because when I do people's podcasts, it's usually at their homes, and they usually offer me a soda or water when I go.
Okay.
So it is similar in that sense.
Podcast with some classy people.
But what's great about it is a creative outlet for people, and we have complete creative control, And so I do every week I do the Jimmy Dorr show, which is on public radio in LA, but it's also a podcast. And I usually write I'm on the panel every week, and I write a sketch, and so the sketch I write is just whatever I want it to be, and I hand it in, and we just do it. And the same thing was the case when I wrote a lot of sketches for the David Feldman podcast, which was mainly a sketch show, and I got to work with Robin Williams, Martin Short, Andrea Martin, Paul Dooley, really incredible people who were just coming in to do this podcast for fun, and for the same reason I was there. We can just do whatever we want here.
Yeah.
There's no, when you do a TV show or a movie, you get a lot of notes from network executives. They're like, change this, change that. Though you can't do that. You're not allowed to say that. And in the podcasting world, that doesn't exist right now. And that's why everybody does it, even though it doesn't pay anything.
Frank, why don't you do your own podcast?
You know what? It's funny you should say that, because my podcast is a scripted podcast, and it's original radio plays that I write. Yes, it's called Podhouse 90, and you can find it at frankconniff.com, and it's free. But for me, it's like, instead of like writing a screenplay or a play and then trying to get someone to produce it and trying to get some bureaucrat who works in a entertainment company office to
Like this one.
to approve of it and give me notes on it. I can just go out and make it myself.
Yeah.
And so that was the whole appeal to me of doing it, and
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it.
And I think there's also an element of the cream really rises to the top with
Yes,
with
yeah.
podcasts. Like
Which
if it's
explains
good,
why mine hasn't risen to
I
the
was
top
just about
yet.
to say I shouldn't say that because ours isn't that high in the rankings. but yeah. Let's talk, since this is an atheist podcast, did either of you grow up in religion? Do you want to talk about that?
My parents wanted me to grow up to be an atheist, so they raised me Catholic.
Every time.
But I'm actually not an atheist, but I'm not religious either, and I'm not an atheist, but I'm a huge fan of blasphemy, so that's why I'm here doing this. But yeah, I come from a Catholic background, which is a great way to grow up to not be religious.
Yeah, for sure. Does it ever? I've had a lot of people turn us down. Even if they're in your position, they don't consider themselves an atheist, but they just don't want their name associated with that. Do you have any fears like that, or are you? Do you feel like
it's kind of too late.
Yeah. Oh, I've got this now.
I
I'm
know,
gonna run out of the room with this laptop.
I never thought of that until just this moment. Oh my God, what am I doing? I'm ruining my career by being here. This is a disaster. Oh God. You see, I do believe in God. I just said, oh God. No. Yeah, I don't, I don't, some people care about stuff like that, but I kind of associate with comedians who are somewhat progressive in their politics and stuff. And
comedians are progressive? I don't.
Yeah, and I do a lot of on Twitter. I do a lot of tweets that are like political in nature, and then I get people writing me and they, why are you doing that? I loved you on Mystery Science Theater, and now
their childhood memories.
Yeah, why are you doing political comedy? And I'm like, well, I'm doing political comedy because I'm interested in politics and I'm a comedian, and so. When you're a comedian, you write about the things that you're interested in, and so if we did get a little bit of when they announced on the Mystery Science Theater website, the Info Club website, people were like, "Oh, it's such a shame that Trace and Frank are doing an atheist convention," and it just comes down to the fact that we don't give a shit.
Did you hear about the protest that's going on across the street?
No.
Apparently, rumor has it that apparently Tennessee has laws against, like, you can't protest. You need to get a permit to protest. So somebody applied for a permit, was denied, and so they rented there's a baseball stadium.
Oh, right, the stadium. Right.
They rented that stadium and are busing Christians in to protest us.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
But it's all inside the stadium. How
I
would
guess.
we know?
I don't know. Apparently people are going to go out and mess with them or something.
But the good thing about it is it's Bat Day.
Yes,
So.
yeah, and beer day too. People are so disappointed that we even make fun of movies. So
it's kind of your whole jam.
Yeah. So it's like it's hard to take it all seriously.
You can't,
we're going to disappoint people anyway.
Someone said that when you try
Especially your parents,
if you try
I
to
assume.
please everybody, you end up pleasing no one.
Yeah.
And the worst, I'm just not into the whole vibe of, ideally I would love for my comedy to appeal to everyone, and I would love for everyone in the world to love me unconditionally and to adore me and to give me validation.
And are you saying this is not the case?
I'm saying that hasn't happened, and I'm not seeking for that. I'm just seeking to entertain the people who want to be entertained by what I do.
I feel like it's good philosophy.
Yeah.
How about you, Trace? In terms of religious background, if any.
I was really raised with nothing. I mean,
Yeah, me
and
too.
comfortably nothing. And but you learn very quickly to avoid talking about it because that's not okay.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a word that's even like, not atheism doesn't even cover what I am. I don't even like
Care.
Yeah. And there's probably, that's not quite true because I do care. But I'm also a hermit, and I don't really need a lot of taking care of.
Yeah, I think that's becoming true for a lot of people, especially millennials are finding themselves. They call them nuns, is what we've been tossing around. N-O-N-E-S, nuns.
No,
so they have no
nuns.
religion,
I like
no
nuns.
religious affiliation.
Well, I already have the outfit to wear for that. So.
But yeah, it's just the people who, like, my fiance is one of them that, like, before he met yours truly, he didn't care. He grew up
Yeah.
Catholic-ish and just never would have thought twice about it had he not hooked up with this one and just been bugged about it for a few years.
Yeah.
So I know, I'm sure you've noticed, you guys tomorrow are doing a that God is not dead
God's not dead. Yeah.
thing. What do you call it?
We will be riffing it.
Riffing.
Mocking,
Riffing it.
Riffing, gently mocking.
Just a little.
No, not really gently mocking it, but
So that movie came out, was terrible. Left Behind came out, was terrible. Like, why can't
Left
Christians?
Behind. When I came out, I thought it was a movie about my career.
Oh,
He's a bomba. That was a rim shot on a bongo drum, by the way. That's my impression of it.
why can't Christians make not terrible movies?
Well,
Like,
we were
what's
talking
going
about
on?
this, and like Ten Commandments, that's a good movie.
Yeah, Ben-Hur is a really good movie.
Yeah.
You know, like when those movies come on, but maybe part of it is I think Ben-Hur was made by William Wyler, who's a Jew. You know, so
Yeah.
a lot of their best Christmas songs were written by Jews.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that way, but I mean, we were talking about it. It's not like if you make like Ben-Hur is very reverently Christian, and it has the crucifixion in it, and it's incredibly but it's a very entertaining movie. It's very well done, you know. And,
Well, even Life of Brian is a very religious movie.
yeah.
It's just not. I don't know if you get so pious you can't be funny anymore.
Yeah.
And comedy is anti-establishment, and it's hard to have both of those and try to make an entertaining thing. It just becomes.
But if the people make, like another example, I think of kind of a Christian movie is It's a Wonderful Life. You know, has an angel in it, and has people praying. They're praying, and then the angel comes.
I do love that movie.
Right.
But it's a great movie. You know, it's like artists, whether they're Christian or atheist. If they're artists, they transcend that and they make something that
Well, and they can use the
lasting
medium
value.
of film to be symbolic.
Yeah.
And it's more meaningful rather than going, this is a hammer, and I'm going to hit you in the head with it.
And God's not dead is not bad. Well, it's partly bad because the people who making it are not that they're Christians, but they're douchebag Christians. But it's true. If you see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the main reason it's bad is because they're not talented.
Yeah.
You know, the people making it. So
It's so filled with hate.
yeah, it is.
It's like, what is that the point?
Well, and I haven't seen the movie, and so this is completely based on like seeing previews and reviews. So it seems like they set up these like really like these straw men in terms of like what the atheist is.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't
It's
know.
like we were just watching it just now, and
it's
like the
insincere.
Kevin Sorbo character.
Yeah.
He's a total dick to this kid in his philosophy class. There's like several scenes, he's just the biggest dick ever. And then they add on another scene of him just like randomly running up to the kid outside the school and being a total dick again. And then the scene with Dean.
He's the bad guy.
The scene with Dean Cain that we were just watching as Trace, what were you saying about that character?
Well, his girlfriend is telling him some horrible news, and he dismisses it out of hand. It's the worst news you could tell anybody that you might have been in love with at some point. And no one on the planet would have this
No one would
response.
behave the way this, even the biggest jerk in the world would not behave the way this guy behaves.
Yeah, if you came to Hitler at dinner and gave him this news, he would still have some compassion.
Yeah. But so in other words, they really are putting their thumb on the scale of like the opposite. Anyone in this movie who isn't Christian is just a horrible person.
Subtlety was not applied at all in the telling of this story.
Did you guys see the new Left Behind movie with Nicolas Cage?
No, I didn't.
We actually, Hammett, my co-host, and I watched it and then did a podcast on it, and it was it walked this line between, I mean, it was terrible, but it wasn't fun bad.
Right.
You know, like
yeah.
it wasn't like a fun movie to like poke fun at, because we were like, okay, we'll go see the movie and then we'll record a podcast talking about it. And we're just like, it's not even fun to talk about. It's just poorly written. Nick Cage is just bananas crazy.
But don't these films make a lot of money? They're cheap to make.
The thing is, Left Behind did not, as far as I know, which is, that's such a testament to how bad it is, because those books sell like crazy.
Right, yeah.
So the fact that they managed to make a movie so bad that like even Christians wouldn't see it. I saw it on maybe the second weekend it was out, and granted it was a Sunday afternoon.
Well, but
Aurora,
they must have had a budget, because Nick Cage, it met his criteria when he makes a decision to do a movie or not. They met his quote.
Yeah.
And so they gave him the amount of money he wanted, and that's apparently with Nicolas Cage is his only thing in his thought process. If he's offered a movie, are you paying me a certain amount of millions of dollars? Don't even send me the script. Send me the check and I'll show up for work.
I think Funny or Die did a take on that of just like every time it's fun, I'm like, I'll do it. Can't say no.
Oh, what's this? Who was it? Joe McHale at the White House Correspondents' Dinner had a really funny. He was talking about Robert De Niro, actually, who's in so many movies, and he said, "Here's my impression of Robert De Niro's agent. Bring, he'll do it."
Isn't it funny to see like these just actors or directors or whomever, and they used to just put out this amazing work, and all of a sudden you're like, what happened? What's going on?
You still want to work. I mean, you look at a career as an arc, and as you're a young, struggling actor, you're taking a lot of work, and then you get really good work, and you are good in the work, and you still want to continue to work, but the good scripts aren't there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't befault anyone.
Yeah, they just want to. They want to.
working.
Especially if you're an actor, it's like you just want to work. The statistic is something like at any given time, like 95% of the people in the Screen Actors Guild are not working.
Yeah.
It's so hard to book an acting gig.
Yeah.
So you can't begrudge any actor for taking a job, except for Nick Cage, but everyone else, you can't. And so, you'll see you'll see Ben Gazzara, who was the original Brick in the original Broadway cast of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. You'll see him in Roadhouse, and
Roadhouse is a great movie.
He's great in Roadhouse.
He's great, and you can tell he's having a really good time. But the reason he's doing it is just because they wanted him for it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Do you guys have an opinion about the fact that it seems like so many movies are remakes and sequels, and it seems like original stories aren't being told on film as much?
I think that's just kind of the Hollywood mentality now.
Or
is
that our fault for keeping we keep going to see these?
Well, the thing is there is that going on in terms of the gigantic big budget movies, and now they even like with superhero movies, like even if they don't work out that well, they'll just say, fuck it, we're going to do it over again. Like right now they're doing another Fantastic Four movie, which is they're doing the origin story again, just like they did with Spider-Man, where they did like less than 8 years after the original, they rebooted it with a different, with the same origin story with a different cast. So that's seems very uncreative. But on the other hand, I got a lot of Academy Award screeners this year, and there were so many good movies this year. I thought Whiplash and Nightcrawler and the
American Sniper.
American Sniper and the Alan Turing one, the Imitation Game.
I loved that.
Yeah, movie. And A Most Violent Year. I mean, there were just about every screener I got was really good, and so I'm like, but the people who make those kind of movies that are creative and original, they really have to get out there and struggle to make them and be relentless in getting them made.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? We are at almost 40 minutes, so let's see. We can find your guys' work at your respective websites.
Yes.
You cannot find my work at my website because I don't have it maintained. But I'll tell you, I'll be in Chicago next week on the 12th.
On the
Sunday the 12th.
I don't know when this is going to get released, but I can.
Or I was in Chicago.
Or you are right now.
Or I am right now.
If you have a time machine, go back and catch that Chicago thing because it was great.
Yeah, or it was horrible, or it will be horrible, or I'm not even there.
Or it is currently being horrible as we speak.
And I do have a website, frankconniff.com, where you can find...
See, this guy's a professional.
Yeah,
He's got a
that's
website.
right. I'm Mr. Slick Showbiz, baby.
That's right.
Where you can find my podcast, which is called Podhouse 90. And I'm on Twitter and Facebook at Frank Conniff. And also, once a week, I'm on the Jimmy Dorr Show, which is a podcast you can find. And every day, I'm on Sirius XM Radio on channel 121, which is the new Sirius XM Insight channel. And John Fugelsang hosts a show there called Tell Me Everything, and I'm his sidekick on that show. And I'm there every day from 2 to 5 Eastern Time.
Awesome.
I can tell you one thing. Yahoo TV, April 14th, Paul Feig's show, Other Space.
Yes.
I provide the voice of the robot on the spaceship. So
you're really expanding your work.
I have a range of about a foot. So again, I'm another robot.
Awesome. And also because I know this is probably the only podcast that I record that any of my friends will ever listen to. Hey guys, thanks for listening finally. All right, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the podcast for FriendlyAtheist.com. This episode was taped at Cinnamon Sound Studios in Aurora, Illinois, and the music was written and performed by Brad Chagdis. If you like what you're hearing, please consider making a contribution at patreon.com/Hemant, that's He-Man-T. We appreciate your support. I'm Hemant Mehta.
And I'm Jessica Blumke. We hope you'll join us next time.